Hey everyone. Hi. Delores Jones, your comeback coach. Let me just start by saying thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for subscribing to my YouTube channel, Delores Jones TV. You all are exceeding my expectations and definitely answering my prayers. So if you are new to the channel or you're new to who I am, please go ahead and subscribe to Delores Jones TV on YouTube. There's some big things happening and I want to make sure that you are a part of them. Thank you to my Facebook followers. You are so loyal. Do you know how much you mean to me? Well, hopefully you do. All right. So today I just wanted to stop by on this Friday and talk a little bit about finding out where you fit. The worst thing is trying to do something that you were never meant to do, or trying to stay somewhere where you're not welcome, or continually to do a poor job, or as they say, a piss poor job at something just because somebody else told you you should. Now, back in the day, I was a director of career development. And what that meant was students from Donnelly College would come in and we would do an assessment. And the assessment would basically ask them a series of questions. And based upon those questions, you would receive a printout of various types of careers that you might be good at. And I'm not surprised. Mine were always speaking, doing something related to communication. When it's in you, you can't help it. But what may have happened is, when you're a kid, or I was watching a Sister Act with Lauryn Hill, and remember they were doing their thing, and Whoopi Goldberg, they were going to a competition. And so Lauryn Hill's mom came into her bedroom, and Lauryn was listening to music, and she's trying to, learn the music. And then her mom's like, I know you're not listening to music. I know you're not listening to music. And she's like, Mom, I'm really good. You haven't heard us. She said, all I know is singing is not going to pay these bills. But Mom, can I go to the competitions? And no, you cannot go to competition, because if it doesn't make money, it doesn't make sense. And so sometimes those type of things, we hear those things and people begin to tell you that you can't make a living doing something that you were put here to do. So before you go and quit your job and jump off the building, I want you to know you can find out where you fit. You can just do a little bit of it. So for example, when I first wanted to get into television and commercials, my little bit was I would watch television and I would repeat some of the announcers as they did commercials. And it just, I was just drawn to it. Now, how many people do you know who sit in front of a television and when the commercials come on, they start repeating what the announcer is saying? Well, that was just something in me. I knew it. I knew it was something I wanted to do. I knew it was something I was meant to do. And I remember talking to other people in the business, and they said, not only do you have to have the voice for it, but you have to know how to write. You have to know how to enunciate and then hit words. It's just not like you can't be monotone. You got to make people believe that what you're selling is something good. And so I would spend time ripping out pages of magazines, of TV ads or whatever. And then I would start practicing. And then one day my brother, Brandon, he's like, Dee Dee, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm practicing. Now, y'all have to understand that I was about 17. Okay. And y'all already know I'll be 50 next Thursday, November 5th. Boom, there it is. But back when I was 17, and like some of you, you've already, maybe you love to cook, or maybe you love to do hair or makeup, or you know how to design things. Well, when you do just a little bit, it'll start to feed that in you. So from the little bit, I decided, I need a communications degree. That's what I did. Then I said, I want to be like Oprah. So I researched, what did Oprah do? Well, she was a journalist. I didn't know she was a journalist. I thought she just started as a talk show host. Well, no, she had a journalism background. So I found the journalism school and I ended up getting a bachelor's of broadcast journalism. So everything I was doing was intentional. When I was at Mizzou, I took communication courses. Everything I did was intentional because it was feeding that thing in which I really believed I was sent here to do. Now, some of you would say, Delores, you have a beautiful voice, but there was a time I hated my voice. In fact, it would take me, and I'm not over exaggerating, like 20 times to do a commercial and then still not be okay with it. But now, when I went and did this last commercial, it took six takes. Why? Because the people who wrote it, they needed to speak and see what they wanted to do. And then you have the producer, he was producing it. And it was like, Delores, you want to do it again? This was a great job. Thank you, Deborah. Et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, wow, that's really far from back when it took me 20 times to do it. And back then, you didn't have a way to go in and erase stuff or blend it together. No, they had these big old 8-track tapes for those of you that are older. And when I worked for Hot 103 Jams and you're in that studio, if you messed up, you had to take the whole 8-track and erase it and start all over. And then when they had the actual reels, you'd have to go find the spot in the reel where you messed up and slice it and then connect it where you wanted it to pick up. So it was more to it than just saying, I want to be on the radio. And so here's another thing. When you have your dream and you're doing your thing, don't let other people discredit what you're doing. As if to say it don't take all that. I remember somebody said, oh, I could do this. Okay, but you're not. All right. So don't let somebody who really is secretly jealous or a person who's not living their dream to come in and try to discredit yours. Delores Jones is my name. I'm your comeback coach. I'm also the author of a book called Stop the Dumb Stuff. Some people want to get it in ebook form. We're working on that and some other things. So make sure you go ahead and subscribe to YouTube right here, Delores Jones TV. My Facebook followers are with me. Y'all with me. All right. Thanks for the love. I would like for you to like and share the video. Thank you for the love. I see all of the love and I'm sending my love right back to you. But what we're talking about is, where do you fit? Nowadays, you can't necessarily afford to quit your job. But for some people, over 50 million people, 50 million jobs were lost during COVID. So now all you got is time to test it out. But we oftentimes, instead of allowing purpose to drive us, we allow a paycheck to do it. And just take it from experience, honey. Eventually, that's not going to work. That is not going to work. And you're not going to be happy. And then people are like, why she got an attitude? Because you're not where you're supposed to be. Right? Well, Delores, I got kids. I get it. When I was in grad school, I was a single mom. Roz, the channel is Delores Jones TV on YouTube. Delores Jones TV on YouTube. I was a single mom with a baby laying across my lap. But at the same time, I still knew I needed to do a little bit of this and a little bit of that. So I had to have some type of full-time job, right? Of some sort. So I had to go to grad school on the weekends. Write my papers when I could. Because I was going somewhere. Well, eventually, after grad school, I got a job at Good Samaritan Project, which is the oldest HIV/AIDS organization here in Kansas City. And I was a family-centered case manager and I was helping people get resources. But still, that Delores, that voice, that person who's like, I know I'm destined to do this. I know I'm destined to be on TV. It's just like you just light up. Well, what did I do? I would take my lunch break. Do you hear me? I worked it out with my supervisor and I said, hey, I'm going to take my lunch break because I got a part-time job down at KCUR, which was the national public radio station here. I would go there. Thank you, Roz. I would go there for my lunch break. Then I come back to my full-time job and I would stay an hour later to make up the money. And I did that. And in doing that, they developed a news magazine show for me. I became an award-winning journalist. But I was doing that on my lunch break. And then on Fridays, when I left work, I would go back to the studio and I would stay as long as I needed to stay. Right? Victoria, you know I love you. Stay as long as you needed to stay. Why? For some people, they would be like, oh, that you wasted. No, this is experience. You ever seen a turtle? All right. And y'all know the story of the turtle and the hare or whatever. And the turtle is just, that turtle is just still walking. It might be slow. It's still walking. It knows where it's going. And then the hare, it just was like, oh, I'm going to beat this. I'm going to beat the turtle. Let me go on over here and sleep. Let me sleep on that. And before they knew it, the turtle beat the hare. Why? Because the turtle was consistent. And sometimes all you need are baby steps. You just need those baby steps to go towards where you want to go. So when the opportunity presents itself and they'll ask you questions like, do you have any experience? I was like, well, yeah. Well, what did you do? Well, I've worked part-time for this particular radio station, blah, 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 blah. Really? Yeah. And then you start looking at all of that experience and then you add on and you add on and you add on and then you add on. Now, say, for instance, you're a person and you like to cook and maybe you're thinking, I want my own restaurant. Okay. But before you really decide on that, how about you go and volunteer or get a part-time job at a restaurant to see what it really takes to run a business? Are you business savvy? And so one man did that. He went and he got a part-time job and he came back and he was talking to one of his friends and he said, I think I'm going to stick to cooking. And he said, why? He said that the customers come here, they're complaining all the time. People don't show up for work all the time. And he's like, I'm just going to stay with cooking. Why? Because to have a business was a huge responsibility. And you have to ask yourself, do I want this responsibility? Sometimes you're sitting there and you're coveting other people's things and you're saying, boy, I wish I had their lives. You really don't know. You really don't know. You really don't know what you're asking for. There are people who may sit there and be envious of you and the anointing, the anointing is God has gifted you to prosper. Yes, but they have no clue what it is you have gone through. Now, some of you may know Hamilton was his last name. First name Hamilton, and I can see his name right now, but he's in a wheelchair and he's here in Kansas City. And he was on that show, Queer Eyes. Well, this young man got shot in Kansas City. And he was paralyzed from the waist down. And he had to make some decisions. And while he was in the hospital, he was about that life. He was going to die in the streets. And then someone came and shot him. And he was paralyzed from the waist down. He is still paralyzed from the waist down. But what he did is he decided, I'm not going to let this kill me. So he went on and he started studying nutrition. And then he got into lifting weights and he lost all of this weight, right? And recently they did a story about him. Well, he put on Facebook that he just signed Wesley Hamilton. That's it. He just signed a contract with Nike. Yes. And everybody's like, oh my God, but what price did he pay? Here's a young man he is still in a wheelchair. He has a company called Disabled, but not really. But he just signed that contract. But before he got to that point, he could have died. He disciplined himself. And now he has his own gym. So he did a little bit of this and a little bit of that. His story also says, sometimes life gives you something that you didn't want and you have to decide what you're going to do with it. Are you going to sit there and pout? Well, I was going to, and I was going to. Well, going to and doing something, they're totally different. Where do you fit? Where do you fit? What is the one thing that people always come up to you and they know, if I contact Darius, if I contact Roz, if I contact Victoria, if I contact, let's see who else is out here. I see Angie or Deborah. Beverly, Kimberly, Jesse, oh, Susan. If I contact this person, oh, girl, she could do that in her sleep. She could do that in her sleep. Like Lewis is on here. Lewis could write poetry in his sleep. But what makes him stand out is he's not just a person who said, I'm going to put some words on paper. No, he uses his love and thirst for knowledge. And he puts stuff together and you're like, whoa, right? That's his theme. And I'm sure he didn't just get on stage and do what he was doing like that. He had to have a little bit and then a little bit and then a little bit and then a little bit. So another way to kind of get some of those things, Philip, is go and do an internship. When I first got into radio, I did free internships, meaning they didn't pay me. I was an intern at KMBC Channel 9. I was an intern at KPRS. And that's when I met Tony G, and they had somebody named Magic Man. And then I went on the way to college. And then when I came back, then I started talking to them, right? And they were like, oh, yeah, we remember her. Remember, she was here. It wasn't about the money. It was about the experience. And then one day I got a job at a gospel radio station. It's no longer in existence, KGGN, right? 890 AM. And they had an opening for a 5 o'clock show on a Saturday. I said, Lord, ain't nobody listening to nobody at 5 o'clock in the morning. But I still went and did my best. But people were listening. One of the top female personalities was listening, Diane Devereaux. And she was like, hey, I really enjoyed what you did. And you're like, what? Yeah. And then one day, one of the main personalities got sick, named Stacy, and Phil Dixon. He said, well, can Delores fill in for her? And I got in there and he was like, let her fill in again. And next thing you know, I was on there full time. And then one day I knew I needed to transition. So I applied for a job at KPRS, Carter Broadcasting. Now, listen, sometimes you won't do it because somebody else has their thing that they want they think you should do. And at the time I was married to a minister, so that would make me a minister's wife, right? So then they start putting out these restrictions. Well, when I went to KPRS to get a job, I told Sam Weaver, I said, hey, I'm an expert in gospel music. See, that was my comfort zone. And he's like, well, I don't hire experts. I hire radio personalities. I'm like, okay, so I left without the job. But as I was going home, I said, Delores, why did you put that limitation on yourself? Why did you do that? And I realized it wasn't my limitation. It was my husband's limitation. He was a minister and he saw this box, but I don't fit in a box. That's just not who I am. And so I called Sam Weaver back that night and left him a message. I said, Mr. Weaver, this is Delores Jones, and I know that you are the person I need to work for to go to the next level. And he called me back in that next day and I got the job. And he said, well, what's the issue? And I began to explain to him what I was dealing with. He said, okay, let's do this. I'll give you 60 days over here on KPRT, which was gospel. He said, but after that, you got to come over here to Hot 103 Jams. I was so green, y'all. I didn't even know who NWA was. Don't judge me. I just didn't. That just wasn't my thing. But I had to learn. And when I went over there, people who normally wouldn't hear me, they started hearing me. The owner, I was like, who is that? Next thing you know, I'm filling in for Chris King, the legend. And then I'm helping White Hat Mike. And I got assigned his show. And at home, hell had broken loose. But I could not ignore what was in me. And from KPRS, filling in for everybody else, then I got a call from Diane Devereaux. And at that time, she was over at Magic 107. She said, Delores, listen, I'm coming off the air. I know you can do this job. I said, okay. So I go over to KPR. I go over to Magic 107.3. I land a job as the afternoon drive time diva. That's how that stuff works. See, that's how that stuff works. Maybe you're saying, I want to be on TV, but I don't know anybody. Baby, people ask me, well, how did you end up getting on Better Kansas City and blah, 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 and all these other things? Honey, I wrote a book called Stop the Dumb Stuff. And at one point, I was working at Sally's Beauty Supply. part-time. Because one of the things I knew is that I wanted women to feel beautiful. And there's so many different ways to help a woman feel beautiful, right? So I thought, well, I'm going to go in here and sell all these products and all this other stuff. Well, one day, one of the anchors or hosts for Better Kansas City came into Sally's Beauty Supply. And so don't let your job that you currently have dictate who you really are. And I was just still bold and we got to talking and I said, hey, I'm a journalist. I knew I was working there, but I'm still a journalist. I'm qualified. I said, but I wrote this book. And she said, I loved your personality. So I sent her my book. And she said, we're going to talk about it. And then maybe a week or so later, I was at the Juke House. We were doing line dances. And you all knew the other anchor and the host, Kelly Jones. She was there at the Juke and she's sitting in her chair. I said, girl, come on up here. Let me show you how to do the wobble, baby, wobble, baby. So we're on the floor and we're doing the wobble and we're doing some other things. She's like, I just love your personality. Then I was able to share with her, hey, I'm also a broadcast journalist and I wrote a book. So one day, both of these women who met me on separate occasions, who work for the same TV station, went into their meeting and found out they were talking about the same person. Yes, work your gift. It'll make you prosper. Talking about the same person. So it was showtime now, honey. Dolores, okay, you got one shot at this. But you've been ready. You prepared for this, right? So I go on to their show. I think my segment was like 8 minutes. And in TV, that is a long time. And they kept bringing me back and back. And I was just being Dolores. And then one day, the show had to be revamped. But the producer, Lauren, she was like, Dolores, we love you. So when we come back on the air, we're going to call you. So I went from going from just having these little appearances to having my own weekly segment. And I did that for like 2 years. And that's how Delores Jones, the comeback coach, was born. And then they had a little graphic and they put the comeback coach out there. That's how that came about. Why? Because you got to find out where you fit. I don't care if you can only get a crumb. The word talks about a mustard seed of faith. A mustard seed is so small, it's smaller than your pinky nail. But what is that? Your faith can move mountains. Faith can move mountains. It's in you. Go get an internship or call some people. So you know what? I admire, Les Brown talks about it. Les Brown is a multi-millionaire from speaking. But when he first started, he would volunteer to help other speakers. Those now he has superseded them, right? It took him 15 years to start doing what he did because of fear. And it's taken me about 20 years to actually just really get out there. Why? Because of fear. And it was funny because I was watching him on YouTube the other day. I have to watch him. I have to watch everybody who's doing what I want to do. And he was talking about fear. And then I thought about it. I have met Les Brown in person twice. The first time he was here speaking someplace. And at that time, there was a newspaper article about me because I was doing something at the radio station. I gave him the article because you got to be bold when you see your opportunity. I went to the radio station. Les Brown called me on a flight. He was on the airplane and he's like, Delores Jones. And he was telling me how awesome I was, right? And he sent me his training stuff for free. So I'm like, they were cassettes. That's how long ago it was. But that fear kept pulling me back. And sometimes that fear is rooted in you don't want to, disappoint other people. You wonder what they're going to say. Is your grandma going to be right? All of this. So then he came back to Kansas City. I was sitting on the front row. He acknowledged me. We left and got a bite to eat. And then I still didn't do anything. Next thing you know, I'm on the Oprah Show. And a lot of people didn't know this, that after I was on the Oprah Show, there was a book company called Borders Books. And they offered me a book deal, y'all. What happened? Fear took over. And then Borders Book closed. So not only do you want to just find out where you fit, you got to be bold enough Some of you may remember Susan Taylor. She was the editor of Essence magazine. And I was at an event and I was prepared. I had my resume and the other ladies were standing in the line just to get an autograph. And I was like, that's Susan Taylor. I got my resume. When I get up there, I'm going to talk to her. And so I got all the way up there and I was like, Miss Taylor, I'm Delores Jones from Kansas City. Do you mind if I give you my resume? And she's like, oh, absolutely. I thought I was going to pee on myself because I was completely out of my comfort zone. And so I hurried up and went in the bathroom and I was like, and the woman was like, she's the one who gave Susan her resume. Did she? Girl, yes. But guess what, y'all? I came back to Kansas and fear got a hold of me. And I called Essence magazine and the young lady said, Susan Taylor's office, how can I help you? And on the other end, I said, you mean this is like the Susan Taylor? Like the Essence, she's like, yes, ma'am. And I said, okay, thank you. And I hung up and I was too afraid to call Susan Taylor back and leave her a voice message. Do you hear me? And then many, many years later, she ended up coming to Kansas City and we met and she goes, I know you from somewhere. She said, are you on TV? And I said, no, ma'am, but I will be. So see, some of you don't want to try because what if I'm not successful? Well, what if you are successful? The word talks about that, your gift will make room for you and bring you before great men. It's your gift. But we make things complicated. Why? Because people tell you, you ain't going to make no money. You ain't going to make no money doing that. You're not going to make no money doing that. Oh, no, you possibly. Oh, they ain't hiring no black people. But nowadays, with technology, you can start your own TV show. Look at the people that are out there on YouTube. Some of the most insane things are on YouTube. But guess what? They making money. Speaking of YouTube, make sure you go over to Delores Jones TV on YouTube and subscribe for me. We're doing big things, y'all. I'm so excited. I'm partnering with YouTube. I just got an email from them and I'm just like super, super excited. But I can't do it without you, right? So if you want quality information, you want things that inspire you, when you hit that door of opportunity and you go, okay, what did Delores say? Okay, she said, okay, what am I supposed to do? Take a deep breath and go for it. You ain't going to die. You're not going to die. Have you ever seen somebody die when they went in for a job interview and the person said, no, we're not going to hire you? Did they die? They did not die. You still here. Hey, Levert, you still here. Do you know there are people who are looking for you? There are people who want to pass on the baton. But they can't find you in your living room. They can't find you playing small somewhere up in one of these stores, knowing you got more to offer than just a hello, thank you, welcome to McDonald's. And I'm not knocking McDonald's because I worked there for 2 days, okay? Because sometimes you got to do what you got to do. I did not fit in McDonald's, but I was willing to go. You have more time behind you than you do ahead of you. What you gonna do? One thing, like I said, go ahead and subscribe to Delores Jones TV. And for those of you who have already done this, I love you for sponsoring what I'm doing. You can do it through Cash App, $ My Comeback Coach. You can also go on PayPal, Delores Inspires Me at yahoo.com. I'm telling you all, the reason that you need to find out where you fit in is because somebody needs to see you. Les Brown, it took him 15 years, honey. And I still listen to his stories. Why? Because people want hope. People are dying for hope. They need to see themselves differently. And with your story, even from your struggle, they can see themselves differently. What is it that you have to offer that you're not offering? And trying to have my own business, listen, It's not always wonderful. There have been times I've struggled to pay my bills, and I don't like to ask for help. But I was like, Dolores, you might need to ask somebody. I'm like, oh Lord. One time I went to ask for help. I was going to ask someone and I start crying. Why? Because I didn't want to ask for help, because I'm usually the person helping everybody else. But there comes a point that when you're going for your dream, things may look uncomfortable. But would you rather be living in a big old house, working this huge job, and then you get to heaven? I hope you get to heaven. And you're like, God, this is the life I live. Is this the life you had for me? And he goes, no, it's the life you settled for. What? Yeah. You should have been international. I should have. Yeah. Your resume is a piece of paper that gives people a list of what you've done. But when you get that interview, you got to sell yourself. And remember, wherever you go, it needs to be, is this point A going to get me to point B? Or are you way, over yonder? Are you? Now, it has been hard for me to ask for help. And so I've been giving my stuff away, just giving it away. I've had other speakers who make way more than I do right now telling my story. Yes. Delores Jones, she's from Kansas. She was born to a 15-year-old single mother. By the time she was 5, her mother was dead. Her mother was 21. She died of a heroin overdose. And they just told my story. And I'm sitting at home trying to figure out how I'm going to pay my light bill or my cell phone bill. Why? Because they believed more in my story than I did. Find out where you fit. Do just a little bit of it. That's all. You ain't got to go sell your house, your car. Tyler Perry's a billionaire now, y'all. But guess what? Tyler Perry was sleeping in a car he was too big for. He was working at all kind of places. But Tyler Perry was supposed to be writing plays. And Tyler Perry, I think he said, he saved up like $25,000 to put on his first play at a theater. And about 7 people showed up. 7. And he said, yeah, he was just like, I just need to go ahead on and die and blah, 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 blah. But he didn't. And he prevailed. The only reason people seem different is because it's their drive. What separates you from somebody else is your willingness to commit to what you know you're supposed to be doing. From a Denzel Washington who flunked out of college. Do you hear me talking to you? He wanted to be a doctor, and then he thought about being a journalist, and they told him, you are on probation. And one summer, he went to an acting camp. And they said, you're really good at this. And then one day he's at his mom's beauty salon, and there was a guy who kept looking at him. And she said, somebody give me a piece of paper. She took a piece of paper. She started writing. And then she told Denzel, she said, God's going to use you. He said, young man, you're going to touch a lot of people. And he's looking like, well, does she know if I'm going to go back to school? Are they going to let me back into college? See, that's where he was thinking. And now he has touched millions of people. He's an Oscar award-winning actor. But when you talk to Denzel, his message is still the same. He says, don't seek to be famous. Aspire to make a difference. Come on. He started at a small acting camp and became one of the best actors that we know. No one can touch Denzel Washington, just like no one would ever touch Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan or Scottie Pippen or LeBron James or Shaq Attack, all that. But what separates them is they were willing to find out where they fit. And sometimes it's uncomfortable because somebody else gave you a script. But this is your life. So what is the next chapter going to look like? Are you ready to end this particular chapter? Well, chapter 49 for me ends on next Thursday, November 5th. And I'm into chapter 50. And I said, God, well, let me look at some of them other chapters that was in between. I didn't like that chapter, Lord. I just skipped over that chapter. And when I traced it back, it was all because of fear. People say fear is false evidence appearing real. Or you could say false expectations appearing real. You won't do it because you expect something negative to happen. But you can either work your faith or you can work your fear, but you can't do both of them. Remember this. Remember what I told you last time. What you want shows up in your conversation. What you must have shows up in your expectation. And you do it. You know, I got to have a haircut. What do? You go to the barbershop. Ladies, girl, I got to get my toes done. What do? You go and you wait at the nail salon. See, whatever's important to you, you're going to make time for it. Whatever's important to you, you're going to make the necessary adjustments and sacrifices. Don't worry about the other people who, I saw a man driving a Corvette. And I said, Lord, now his Corvette is going to take him to the same street I'm going. But what happens? We feed our egos. I'm not going. If I can't ride in a Mercedes, I ain't going. You better get your tail on a Metro bus. The goal is to get there. This ain't about how you get there. The goal is to get there. You got to be at the table. You got to be at the table. Some people ride bicycles. In fact, some people I know ride bicycles and they still have a car. You got to be bigger than the car. You got to be bigger than what other people think about you. Because other people ain't going to get in the casket with you, child. I done told you. I've never been to a funeral where somebody said, excuse me, I'm about to get down in that hole with that person. If you've seen anybody, let me know. I said, oh, I love her so much. I love her so much. Okay, we're going to have to go ahead and bury her. Okay. Well, let me get one of them flowers off the top. Give me one of them roses. Everybody start picking the roses and the flowers, right? The carnations and everything. They have the obituaries, but ain't nobody jumping down in that hole. So why would you let somebody else kill off your dream? Now, your assignment, and I'm in business, is to find out what is that one thing. You know what it is. You've seen it before. It might have got beaten out of you. Somebody might have scared you. But then find out, what can you do? How can you just do just a little bit of it? Just a little bit. You don't need it all. You want to sample it. That way you can decide, yeah, I want to continue to pursue this. Or you could say, I don't be able to do it. I'm not even made for that. And it's okay. At least you know. And just because you go to school and get a degree, let me help you. Do you know how many people go to college and get a degree and they don't use it? Yes. They don't use it. Now, they can use the skills or the information, but nowadays coming out of college and using the degree in the same field, that's not a guarantee. But nobody can take your knowledge from you. So go ahead and be great. Delores Jones is my name. I'm your comeback coach. I want to see you win. I show people how to bounce back better, not bitter. Through life experiences and bad decisions, honey. I've been bouncing around for quite some time. Go on over, for those of you already here on my YouTube channel, hit the notification button, boom, subscribe and be notified so you can join me live. A lot of you are like, when are you going live? If you hit the notification button, you'll be here with me live. Secondly, for those of you that are wanting to support, and honey, every little bit counts. Simply go to Cash App, $ my comeback coach. I want to be your comeback coach. $ my comeback coach. If you're in the PayPal era, go ahead and just PayPal me at DoloresInspiresMe@yahoo.com. And whatever you do, please don't give up. You are important. You're so valuable. Maybe you're in the wrong place, But when God gives you something, he doesn't take it away. He gives it to you for you to use, for you to water it, for you to show what is it. You know, some people don't know that they're missing something until you show up and they're like, I can't believe I was missing this. I can't believe I was missing this. I said, I'm so glad you came. Girl, I never would have seen it. And you're like, oh, okay. Go be great today and tomorrow. But do your homework and inbox me, because people know Delores will call you. I have called people. They're like, is this really you? I said, did you really ask me to call you? Oh, my God. I'm just like you. I just may have a little more oomph and fire today to help you. But somebody else had to have some oomph and fire to help me. We're in this thing together. Stop settling. All right. Talk to y'all later. Bye-bye.